It was just after 11 o'clock at night. At Los Angeles International Airport, a sleek 275-seat Airbus A350-900 painted in Delta's signature red and blue pushed back from the gate. The cabin lights dimmed, the engine screamed to life, and somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, history quietly began. But here's the thing, most people missed. That Hong Kong flight? It was only the beginning, because in the next 24 hours, Delta would launch 3 more brand new routes, to Chicago, to Malta, to Kansas City. 4 routes, 2 days. A coordinated expansion that sent shockwaves through the aviation world and quietly rewrote the global airline map. To understand why this moment matters, you need to understand the position Delta is in right now. Delta Airlines is the second largest carrier in the United States. In the 12 months between March 2025 and February 2026, it carried 201 million passengers. That's not a typo. 201 million people chose Delta, and yet, growth has slowed. Compared to the previous year, passenger numbers were essentially flat, up barely 0.2%. In the airline world, flat is not a comfortable place to be. Not when United is expanding aggressively. Not when American is fighting for every hub city it can hold. Not when low-cost carriers are quietly eating away at price-sensitive routes. So what do you do when you're already a giant but growth is stalling? You don't sit still, you move. And move is exactly what Delta did, picking 4 very specific markets for very specific reasons and launching them back-to-back in a 48-hour window that few in the industry saw coming at this scale. 4 routes, 2 days. Let's go through every single one. Route 1. The comeback Los Angeles to Hong Kong, LAX, HKG, 8 years. That's how long Delta had been absent from Hong Kong. 8 years since the last Delta flight touched down in one of Asia's most iconic cities. The story of why Delta left goes back further than most people realize. For years, Delta had inherited a Seattle to Hong Kong route from Northwest Airlines, one of the carriers Delta absorbed in a merger. The route sometimes stopped in Tokyo. It was a relic of a different era of trans-Pacific flying. And in October of 2018, Delta quietly ended it. Hong Kong went dark on Delta's network. For 8 years, if you wanted to fly Delta to Hong Kong, you couldn't. You'd connect through another carrier, reroute through Tokyo or Seoul, or fly a competitor. But on June 6, 2026, that changed. Delta's new Los Angeles to Hong Kong service is everything the old Seattle route was not. It departs from LAX, America's gateway to the Pacific, on a brand new Airbus A350-900, the most advanced long-haul jet in Delta's fleet. Configured with 4 cabin classes, Delta One at the front, Delta Premium Select, Delta Comfort Plus, and Main Cabin. This is not a bare-bones trans-Pacific service designed to fill seats. This is a premium product, carefully crafted for the kind of traveler who expects more. The numbers tell the full story of this route's ambition. The distance? A staggering 7,243 miles. The flight time? Around 15 hours and 45 minutes westbound. The departure time out of LAX? 11:05 at night. A classic Trans-Pacific Red-Eye Plus, arriving in Hong Kong at 5 in the morning 2 days later by the calendar. Returning from Hong Kong, the plane departs at 9:25 in the morning local time, and due to the magic of crossing the international date line eastbound, it lands back in Los Angeles at 7:55 the same morning. A time-bending arrival that never stops feeling slightly surreal, no matter how many times you've done it. Delta joins Cathay Pacific and United Airlines as the 3rd carrier in the Los Angeles to Hong Kong market, bringing the total daily frequency between the 2 airports back to 6, a number not seen since 2020, when American Airlines still served the route. And there's one more angle to this route that almost nobody is talking about: cargo. Delta didn't just launch this flight for passengers. LAX and Hong Kong are 2 of the world's most important air freight markets, and this route punches a new corridor right through the center of trans-Pacific trade. Electronics, pharmaceuticals, perishables, all moving now on a route that didn't exist a week ago. Then there's the longer game. Delta is a founding partner of the LA 28 Olympic and Paralympic Games, and the official airline of Team USA. The 2028 Olympics come to Los Angeles. Delta is building the connections now, with Hong Kong, with Asia, with the world, that will pay off when millions of international visitors start planning their trips to LA 2 years from now. The comeback is official. The 8-year absence is over. And Delta's Pacific ambitions, they are only just beginning. Route 2, the historic first New York JFK to Malta. While the world was still talking about Hong Kong, Delta quietly made an entirely different kind of history. On Sunday, June 7, 2026, the very next day, a Delta Airlines Boeing 767-300ER lifted off from New York JFK and pointed its nose east across the Atlantic. Its destination? Malta International Airport, the Mediterranean island nation of Malta. And with that single departure, Delta became the first North American airline in history to operate a scheduled, non-stop service to Malta. The first ever. In all of commercial aviation history, no airline from the United States, Canada, or anywhere else on the North American continent had ever flown direct to Malta. Till Delta. Now, if you're not immediately familiar with Malta, let's fix that, because this destination is extraordinary. Malta is one of the smallest countries on Earth, a tiny archipelago in the heart of the Mediterranean, south of Sicily and north of the Libyan coast. But what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for in history, beauty, and cultural density. Its capital, Valletta, is a UNESCO World Heritage City. The entire island is essentially an open-air museum, with megalithic temples older than Stonehenge and medieval fortifications built by the Knights of St. John. For American travelers, Malta has always been on the bucket list, but always just out of reach. Getting there meant flying to London, or Rome, or Frankfurt, and connecting. An entire extra leg, an extra few hours, an extra level of inconvenience that quietly kept Malta off the radar for millions of potential visitors. Until now. Delta's service operates 3 times a week, a seasonal route running through late October 2026, on the 767-300ER, a 216-seat wide-body that is perfectly calibrated for a pioneering new market. You don't launch a brand new, trans-oceanic route with your biggest jet. You start with a proven workhorse, prove the demand, and scale up. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. Delta didn't just wake up one day and decide to fly to Malta. Delta asked. In a program called the Sky Miles Route Race, Delta let its most loyal frequent flyers vote for their next European destination. The options were presented, the community deliberated, and Malta won. That's not how most airlines build routes. Most airlines rely on yield management models, demand forecasting algorithms, and competitive gap analyses. Delta did all of that, and then they also just asked the people who fly them most. And those people said, Malta. The demand signal was real. Around 95,000 people had traveled between North America and Malta in 2025. Every single one of them had connected somewhere. And when Delta opened bookings on the inaugural flight, reports indicate over 90% of seats filled almost immediately. 90%. On a route to a destination that had never had a non-stop from North America. Ever. Malta's tourism authority met Delta's inaugural flight with a celebration at the gate. This isn't just a new flight, it's a new chapter in how the world connects to Malta. Route 3, the power move, Los Angeles to Chicago, O'Hare. Now we come to the route that, on paper, sounds the least exciting, and yet for anyone who understands how airlines compete for dominance, this one might be the most strategically important of them all. Los Angeles to Chicago, O'Hare. Launched June 7, 2026. Up to 3 daily flights on the Boeing 737-800. Here is the brutal truth about this route before Delta launched it. The Los Angeles to Chicago O'Hare corridor is the 14th busiest domestic airport pair in the entire United States. Nearly 1.5 million round-trip passengers flew that route in the 12 months before June 2026. That's more than 4,000 people every single day, back and forth between America's second and third largest cities, and Delta had 2% of it. 2%. Why? Because Delta didn't fly it non-stop. Every single Delta customer who wanted to get between LAX and O'Hare had to connect. Routing through Detroit or Minneapolis or Salt Lake City or Seattle. Meanwhile, American United and Frontier were all flying non-stop every single day. Delta was leaving money on the table. Lots of it. And it knew it. The non-stop launch changes everything. Suddenly, Delta is in the fight. 3 daily frequencies means real schedule depth. Early morning flights for the business traveler catching a meeting in Chicago. Midday for the leisure traveler. Evening return for the deal closer who needs to be home by midnight. The aircraft they chose, the Boeing 737-800, is configured with 16 first-class seats, 36 Delta Comfort Plus seats, and 82 main cabin seats. That premium ratio is deliberate. Delta isn't trying to win this route on price, it's trying to win it on product. There's another layer to this story. Spirit Airlines, the ultra-low-cost carrier that used to offer budget fares on this route, no longer exists. It collapsed. And when Spirit disappeared from a market, it left behind passengers who still needed to get somewhere. Delta is one of the airlines stepping into that vacuum. This route also completes something significant. With Chicago O'Hare now on the map non-stop, Delta has direct service from LAX to all 10 of its largest demand cities. That's not a coincidence, that's a puzzle piece clicking into place. Route 4, Austin to Kansas City. The fourth and final route in Delta's 48-hour blitz is the one that got the least coverage. And arguably, it's the one that tells us the most about how Delta is thinking about the next 5 years. Austin Bergstrom International to Kansas City International. June the 7th, 2026. 13 flights a week, operated on SkyWest Embraer E175s. To understand why this route matters, you need to understand what Austin has become. In 2019, before the pandemic changed everything, Delta had 2.6 million available two-way seats in Austin. That was already strong. Today, in 2026, Delta is running 5.5 million seats in and out of Austin. That's a 14% increase over the previous year's record. More than double what it was before COVID. Austin is no longer a mid-sized Texas city with a quirky music scene. It is one of the fastest-growing aviation markets in the United States, fueled by the explosion of tech companies relocating there, a housing boom, and tourism that has accelerated year over year. So when Delta looked at the Austin to Kansas City route, what did it see? It saw a market where American Airlines had walked away in 2024, where Southwest was the only carrier flying non-stop, where 162,000 round-trip passengers a year were already using the route, and where 27,000 more were flying between the two cities indirectly through Dallas or Houston. Those 27,000 passengers routing through someone else's hub, Delta calls them an opportunity. The E175 is the right tool for this job, small enough to be economical at 13 weekly frequencies, big enough to offer a genuine Delta experience. With first-class seats and Comfort Plus, not a cramped regional puddle jumper, it's precise, it's deliberate, and it fits exactly what a fast-growing, increasingly business-focused city like Austin needs on a route to a city like Kansas City. The bigger story. What Delta is really building 4 routes, but pull back far enough, and you see something much larger. Delta is building a new version of itself. Los Angeles is the centerpiece. Delta has poured $2.3 billion into its LAX operation. A brand new Terminal 3 complex, spanning 1.2 million square feet, 27 gates, a world-class Delta Sky Club, premium check-in, dedicated security. It's not just an airport upgrade, it's a statement. Delta is already the largest global carrier at LAX, with more than 150 peak day departures to over 50 destinations. The Hong Kong and Chicago routes weren't additions to an afterthought hub. They were strategic keystones in a foundation that Delta intends to build on for decades. And they're not done. Credible industry reports point to Manila in 2027, possible Seoul service, increased Shanghai capacity, year-round Auckland. The LAX to London Heathrow route, long dormant, has reportedly been discussed with a premium-focused business model that would dedicate the majority of seats to business-class travelers. This is an airline thinking 10 moves ahead. Then there's the premium thread that runs through every single one of these launches, the A350-900 to Hong Kong, the 767-300ER to Malta, first class on every domestic O'Hare flight, even the regional E175 to Kansas City has proper premium seats. Delta is not playing the budget game, Delta is playing the experience game. And perhaps most fascinatingly, Delta is listening. The SkyMiles route race that surfaced Malta as a destination is not a gimmick. It is a data collection mechanism wrapped in community engagement. It tells Delta exactly which markets its highest value customers are dreaming about, and then Delta builds the route. That's not just smart marketing, that's a fundamentally different way of deciding where an airline flies. Here is what Delta's 48-hour blitz ultimately means. It means a family in Los Angeles can now book a non-stop to Hong Kong on Delta's own metal, on one of the best long-haul jets in the sky, for the first time since 2018. It means a traveler in New York can finally say, "I'm flying direct to Malta." No connections, no layovers, no wasted hours in a European hub. It means a consultant flying between LA and Chicago now has a Delta non-stop option, with a flatbed upgrade available if the trip warrants it. It means a tech worker commuting between Austin and Kansas City has one more non-stop choice, and real competition driving fares down. 4 routes, 2 days. Millions of travelers who just got a new option they didn't have before. That is what an airline looks like when it stops merely defending market share and starts building something new. The engines never stop, the map never stops growing. And somewhere right now, a Delta jet is headed somewhere it has never been before. This was the story of Delta's most extraordinary 48 hours. If this video gave you something, a new destination to dream about, a new perspective on how airlines work, or just 15 minutes of genuinely interesting aviation, then you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next flight.